lines on the board right here. First thing I want to do is I want to find the equation of each of the two lines that are on this board. Okay, so to go back through what we've done the last couple of days, the first thing I do is write y equals mx plus b, because that is your standard slope-intercept equation for any line that you are working with. So the first thing I want to do then, the easiest thing to do is to find out what b is. So let's start with this line right here. What is my b value on that line? -2. -2, because it crosses right down here, right? Good. Simple enough, right? So now what I want to do is I want to find out what my slope is. So now I can do one of two things. I can find another point that it passes through exactly and count how I get to that point, okay? Or I could just pick a point and then do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That works as well. So I see that it also goes through this coordinate right here. So my first coordinate is 0 and -2, and I go to 1 and 0. How do I go from -2 to 1 and 0? Tell me, if I was standing right here, how would I get to there without going diagonally? Up 2 and right 1. So my map is saying go up 2 and right 1. There's my slope. That's the equation of that line. Y equals 2x minus 2. Okay? So that's it. That's all there is to it. All right, let's look at this next line then. Again, I always start y equals mx plus b. Fill in for b, fill in for m. That'll give me the equation of it. All right, what's my b value on that other line? +1. Crosses right here. Okay, let's find another coordinate that it actually hits. Well, let's do this one right here. Crosses right there. So tell me, how do I go from this point, which is 0 and 1, up to this coordinate, which is 1 and 3? Up 2 and over 1? Right, 1? There's the equation of that line. What do you notice about the two equations? They have the same slope, but different what? Y-intercepts. So they're what, Casey? Parallel? Absolutely. That's today's lesson. Two lines are parallel with each other if they have the same slope, but different y-intercept. Okay, so make a note of that. Two lines in which the slope of this line is equal to the slope of this line. The two lines are parallel. Okay? So you need to make a note of that today. If there's two lines that have the same slope with different y-intercepts, they will be parallel to each other. Because you're still going up and over to get to the next point, they will never cross each other. Alright? What would happen if they had the same y-intercept as well?
It'd be the same line.
It's the same line. Simple, right? Okay, so there's nothing else to it. So that's parallel lines. Any questions about that? How many of you can't figure out how to fill in for M and B yet? Dawson, wake up. How many of you can't fill in for M and B given the graph? Everybody knows how to do that? Okay, because that's the first of it. That's the easy part. Look at the graph, find your y-intercept, write it for B. Find another point on the graph and count to it. Always go up and down first, or left and right. See, I picked this point right here. I may have wanted to pick this one down here. So how would I go from here to there? Down 2, left 1. Down 2 is a -2, right? And left 1 is -1. Still gives me 2 over 1. because the slope will be exactly the same from any point to any point on the graph. What about going from here to there now? How do I go from this coordinate, which is -1, up to 3, and over to this guy? Up 4 and right 2. Still 2 over 1. The slope between any 2 points on the graph, when reduced, will always be exactly the same if they're on the same line. That's all you have to remember. The slope will always be exactly the same. If you're unsure, then use a second set of points and find out how to get to them. Right? Okay, so far? All right, now I'm going to use this. Yep, well, by all means. Yeah, for sure. Some workout. Okay, so now I'm going to clear this graph. Okay, so here's the next one. Y equals, oops, 2x equals. Okay, so we'll erase this. Let's do this again. Let's find the equation of the red line right now. Y equals mx plus b. What is the y-intercept? -1. Okay, x. And what's the slope? So I'm going to go from here to this guy right here. Up to? Right 1. So I still have that 2 over 1 slope, right? Okay, excellent. Now let's find this off green one here. Y equals mx plus b. What's the one thing you notice I'm doing every time I do this? I write the equation out first, right? Because then it's simple for me to see what I need to fill in. All right, as long as I keep it the same all the time, and you'll do this all the way through. Every time you graph a line, I'm going to suggest you do this. Yes, there's a couple other methods, but to me, this is the way I want to see it. Okay, it's easy. All right, so what is the y-intercept for this green line right here? -1. Yeah, it crosses right there as well. I agree with you. So I got that. Okay, so now I want to get from this coordinate to this one, because there's the next one it hits. So, okay, up 1 and left 2, up 1, left 2. How do I write that as my slope? 1 over -2. Excellent work. All right. Now looking at these two lines right here, what does it look like? Pardon me? An X? It sure does. You're wrong. Somebody want to guess what they think the angle would be for there? 90? So if I have two lines that cross and make a 90-degree angle, what do I call that? We call it perpendicular, right? That's exactly what I wanted you to see. That, yeah, they are in fact at 90 degrees. They are perpendicular to each other. So now, I want you to look at the equations, the two equations, right now. I want you to look at the two equations right now. What do you notice? They do have the same y-intercept. That's not necessary. Ah, what do we see about that? Say that again? Not inverse. Okay, because inverse in graphing means something completely different than what you think it does. Inverse means I switch my x with my y in graphing. Okay. So we never want to remember it like that, but I know what you're saying. Okay? The fractions are what? First of all, the numbers are, they're flipped. What do we call that when we do that to a fraction? Who said it? Reciprocal, absolutely. Okay? So they are the reciprocal of each other, but there is also one other key element of it. One's a negative, one's a positive. Okay? So what does that mean? It means when you have two lines that have a slope in which one is the negative reciprocal of the other, all right? I'll explain that a little bit better. One's the negative reciprocal of the other, you're going to get perpendicular lines. The y-intercept has no bearing on it. Okay? It just happens I put it there because I wanted you to see it. All right? So, what does that mean? Well, if my slope of line 1 is a over b, so just two numbers, right? A number a and a number b. Okay? And my slope of my second line is minus b over a. So it doesn't matter where the negative is. Okay? All it means is that I take the first fraction, I reciprocate it, I flip it, right? So a over b becomes b over a, and they have the opposite sign to each other. So if this guy's positive, this has to be negative. If this guy's positive, that has to be negative. That's all that means. Okay, that's what, well, no. What I'm saying, okay, that's what I'm trying to say. It doesn't, like, this could be here or here.
But like, what if they're both?
Then they're positive.
Okay.
A negative divided by a negative is a positive.
Okay, yeah.
Right? So that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Okay? So, now, just to clarify that, right? 3 over negative 4 is the same as negative 3 over 4.
Yeah.
Right? So it doesn't matter as long as one of them has it or it's in front of it. Okay? All right? So, any questions about that?
So if they both have, like if the B and the A would have negative signs, would that mean it's not perpendicular?
Well, that would mean that they're positive, which would be just flipped, but not a negative reciprocal. Okay, let me, here. Okay, so let me show you, all right? So I have this. What does that equal? It's 3 over 4, right? Correct? Okay, so if I needed to have the negative reciprocal of this, it would have to be minus 4 over 3, or 4 over negative 3. I only want 1 in order to keep it as a negative, right? These are exactly the same.
Okay.
Okay, that's negative 1.3 repeat, that's negative 1.3 repeat. Okay, it doesn't matter where the negative is. Okay? You understand what I'm saying there? Okay? All right. So, all that you are looking at doing now is find an equation of a line that's parallel to another line. So how do you do it? You find the equation of the first line, which is get the slope of it, and that becomes the same slope for your next line. All right, so here's an example that we're looking at. It says, write an equation in slope-intercept form, so that's y equals mx plus b. This is on page 154. For the line that has a y-intercept of negative 4 and is parallel to 5x plus 3y minus 6 equaling 0. Graph the lines using graphing technology. Well, I'll worry about that in a second. Okay, so what the question is asking is, they give you a line, 5x plus 3y minus 6, right? Minus 6, yeah, equals 0. So they give you that line. They want you to find a line that's parallel to it and then find the equation of that line. Okay? But the equation of the new line has to have a different y-intercept. It has to have a y-intercept of minus 4. So, first thing I do, they want it in slope-intercept form. So what do I need to find for my new equation? I need an m and I need a b. So where do I get the b from? It's my negative 4. It gave it to me, right? It says it wants the new equation to have a y-intercept of negative 4. That was given to us, right? but it wants this also to be parallel to this line. So in order for two lines to be parallel, what has to happen? I have to have the same slope. So what's the slope of that line? For me? No, that's the y-intercept of this one. I want the slope of that one. What is it? Anybody know? Not yet, right? We don't know. Why don't we know? Well, because it's not in slope-intercept form. Okay, we need it in y equals form in order to find the slope, because that's what we've learned so far. So let's arrange this so that I get my slope from it. So I'm going to keep the 3y on the left side. I got to move the 5x over to the other side. What do I do? I'm going to minus the 5x. What do I do with minus 6 to move it to the other side? Add 6, right? Okay, so far? How do I get y by itself? Divide by 3. Y is equal to negative 5 over 3x plus 2. So I need this equation to have the slope that's the same as this one. Well, what's the slope of that equation? Negative 5 over 3. So what's the equation of my new line? Y equals minus 5 over 3x subtract 4. Okay? So it wanted us to have a new equation with this is my y-intercept and parallel to that guy. Which means, once I say parallel, it means same slope. Okay? So that's exactly what I have there. I have two equations that will be parallel to each other. What's the y-intercept in this equation? 2. What's the y-intercept in this equation? Negative 4. And because they have the same slope, they're going to be parallel to each other, right? So, if I were to draw it, one, 2, 3, 4, right there. There's my 0, negative 4. Where do I got to go from there? Down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? 1, 2, 3. Correct? There we go. So there's the equation. There's that line right there. Where do I start with this line? What's my starting point? Yeah, it's positive 2, but where's my starting point? If I say point, I'm referring to an x and y value. It's like saying coordinate, right? So what is it?
0 and 2.
0 and 2. That's important for us. Because when we graph, you need to tell me where you are located. If you told me you're 5 miles out in the bush, how the heck am I going to find you? Bush could be that way, right? But if you can tell me, okay, I'm, 4 miles north and 5 miles east, I have a better shot at it. I'm still not going to find you. But mostly because I won't.
Mostly because of the try.
Because I won't try. Correct. It might not work for you. Let's get that. Okay. So where do I go from 0 and 2? Down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right 3 to right here. And I have two parallel lines. And at the start of this question, all they gave me was this line and that coordinate. It gave me a line that's parallel to this one, but has this as my y-intercept. Okay? So then the next part of this says, well, I want the same thing to happen, but now, I want my line to be perpendicular to it. So I have a new equation that I need. So I start by going y equals mx plus b, right? It says I still want my new y-intercept to be negative 4, so where does that go in that equation? For b, so y equals mx minus 4. All right? In order for it to be perpendicular, what's the slope of this if it's perpendicular to that line? What is it?
Negative 3 over 5.
Yep. Yep. 3 over 5. Okay? It's negative right now. The fraction's negative, correct? I need to make it a positive and then flip it. So my new equation is y equals 3 over 5x minus 4. Negative reciprocal. All that it's saying, I say negative reciprocal, what it means is that it has to have the opposite sign and then flip the fraction. That's the easiest way to remember it. Okay? So where do I go? 0, negative 4, right here. And where does it tell me to go? Up 3, 1, 2, 3, right 5, 3, 4, somewhere over here. And perpendicular. Okay? So to get a parallel line, to have two parallel lines, I need the slopes to be equal. To have two lines that are perpendicular to each other, I need to have the slope in which I flip the fraction and I change the sign. So if it's positive, it becomes negative. If it's negative, it becomes positive. I don't just flip this with the negative. I change the sign altogether. Alright, still got some blank stares, so we'll keep going through this. Alright, I'll worry about this. This is 7.4. You're going to do this today. Alright, but I think I have a lot of lost people in here.
It's with the general plan.
Yeah.
I think
This?
It's the changing.
I don't
It's
get
different
that.
forms.
Yeah.
Okay, let me do something different then. Let me do this. Okay? I understand that. I don't want to show you this. Okay, because I sometimes find this may cause more grief than anything, but I'm going to show you how this works. Alright? I'm going to take this guy right here. That's my general form, with no numbers in it. A, B, and C represents any possible number. Okay? And I'm going to change it into slope-intercept form, meaning I need to get the y by itself. Fair enough? Okay? So I want to isolate the y. Alright? So I got by here. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to move the other two. How do I move this and this to the other side? I subtract them, because right now I'm adding them. Do we all agree? Everybody agrees? Okay, so let's do that. I got by is equal to minus ax subtract c, correct? So that's one step. One step. Subtract those other two. Or if they were different signs, add them, whatever. Add or subtract is what I'm getting at. Okay? What's the last step to get y by itself? Divide by b. Okay, so let's do that. Y is equal to minus a over b, x minus c over b. Okay? I'm just dividing. What's the other way to talk about dividing? Well, I'm multiplying each by 1 over b. That's all. No. 1 over b. Okay? I'm multiplying by 1 over b. So I times a by 1 over b, and I times c by 1 over b. C times 1 is c over b. Anybody have any objections to what I did there? It's court now. All right? Tell me right now, looking at the board, what's the slope? It is. The slope is minus a over b. What that means is that when I have it in this general form, if I take the a value, make it a negative, and divide it by whatever the b value is, I can get the slope without arranging it. So I'll show you that in a second. What is the y-intercept? What is it? It's negative c over b. Okay. So, still not sure. We're still unsure why, how this works. Well, let's look at the equation I just had. What's my A value?
5.
5. What's my B value?
3.
So with this in mind, what is my slope? -5/3. I agree. What is my y-intercept? Okay, so right now my C value is what? -6. So that's a -6 over my B value, which is 3. A negative makes that a positive. 6/3 is 2. Everybody understand what I did there? So all I did was take that A value, make it a negative, and divide it by my B. Take this C value, make it a negative, and divide by my B. So I got that. So everybody understands? Look at this. What was my slope? -5/3. What was my y-intercept? +2. Okay, there's your general form to your y-intercept form. Is it easier?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. But you have to work on using that slope-intercept form
Is that always how you write though?
100% of the time. 100% of the time. So if you remember that your slope will always be in this form, -a/b, and that your y-intercept will be -c/b, you've got it. Without having to take this and this to the other side, and then divide by that. It works. Both methods work equally as well, and they're both correct. Okay? So do you now understand the general form now? All right? And changing it to y-intercept form, or slope-intercept. Okay? So that makes it a little bit easier now. All right. So let's look at yesterday's question. I'm going to just shut this off. Let's look at yesterday's questions then.